When the five-star hotel clerk told me I wasn't suitable for a room, he made a colossal mistake. I didn't just book a suite, I bought the entire penthouse floor just to check in. The rain was lashing against the taxi window in sheets, blurring the glittering lights of downtown into long, impressionistic streaks. It was almost 2 in the morning, and every bone in my body ached with the kind of deep cellular exhaustion that only a 14-hour flight followed by a 2-hour delay on the tarmac can produce. All I wanted was a hot shower and a bed that didn't vibrate with the gentle roar of a jet engine. The Sovereign Hotel, with its 5-star reputation and notoriously plush mattresses, seemed like an oasis in the concrete jungle. As I stepped out of the cab, the doorman, a kind-faced older gentleman with a magnificent white mustache, rushed forward with a large black umbrella. He tipped his hat, his smile genuine. "Welcome to the Sovereign, miss. Nasty night out there." I gave him a tired but grateful smile back, pulling the hood of my simple gray hoodie further over my head and adjusting the strap of the backpack slung over my shoulder. I was dressed for comfort, not for impressing anyone. My usual power suits and designer heels were tucked away in the suitcase the doorman was now wrestling from the trunk. Tonight, I was just a weary traveler. The lobby, however, was anything but weary. It was a cathedral of wealth. Gleaming marble floors reflected the soft golden light from a chandelier the size of a small car. A gentle whispering fountain gurgled in the center of the room, and the air smelled faintly of vanilla and old money. It was exactly the kind of quiet, opulent sanctuary I was looking for. But my path to sanctuary was blocked by the man standing behind the long, polished check-in counter. He was young, probably mid-20s, with meticulously gelled hair and a crisp white shirt that looked like it had been ironed with a laser. He was pretending to be busy, tapping at his keyboard with an air of profound importance. But I could feel his eyes flick over me as I approached. It was a look I was all too familiar with. A quick, dismissive scan that took in my comfortable travel sweats, my backpack, my tired face, and my black skin, and came to an immediate and entirely incorrect conclusion. When I reached the desk, he didn't look up for a full 10 seconds. I waited, my patience already worn thin from the travel day. Finally, he lifted his head, a practiced plastic smile plastered on his face that didn't come close to reaching his eyes. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone dripping with the kind of condescending sweetness that sets your teeth on edge. "Yes," I said, my voice a little hoarse. "I have a reservation. The name is Serafina Jones." He tapped a few keys, his smirk growing with each keystroke. He hummed, drawing the sound out. "I'm not seeing anything under that name. Are you sure you're at the right hotel?" The exhaustion in my veins began to mix with a familiar hot flicker of irritation. I took a deep breath. "I'm quite sure. Serafina Jones. I booked the Monarch Suite 2 weeks ago. I have the confirmation email right here." I pulled out my phone, my fingers flying across the screen to pull up the email with its bold, clear confirmation number. I held it out for him to see. He barely glanced at it. "Ah, well, I'm afraid there's been some sort of mistake. The system is showing that we are completely 100% booked tonight. Every single room." He spread his hands in a gesture of fake helplessness. "A major tech conference, you understand. There's simply nothing available." I stared at him, my mind working. A mistake in the system was possible, but his attitude screamed otherwise. "That's unfortunate," I said, keeping my voice level. "But my suite was prepaid. Your hotel has already taken my money. So I'm sure you can understand that fully booked isn't really an acceptable answer." His plastic smile tightened. "I'm sure we can issue a full refund in the morning. Perhaps I could recommend another hotel. There's a budget-friendly place a few blocks over that might be more suitable." And there it was, the coded language. Suitable. The insinuation that I didn't belong here, that I couldn't possibly afford to be here, that my presence was somehow a mistake he needed to correct. The slow burn in my chest intensified. This wasn't about a computer glitch anymore. "No," I said firmly. "I booked a room at this hotel. I've paid for a room at this hotel, and I will be staying in a room at this hotel. I'm sure if you look again, you'll find my reservation." His name tag read Todd. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, as if he were doing me a favor. "Look, I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes these online booking sites, they overbook. It happens. We have a certain clientele here, a standard to maintain. We can't just create rooms out of thin air." He was looking past me now, his eyes scanning the empty lobby as if he expected a gaggle of his precious clientele to appear and be offended by my very existence. My hand, resting on the cool marble counter, clenched into a fist. I had built a multi-million-dollar software empire from the ground up. I had negotiated deals with cutthroat venture capitalists and swaggering CEOs who saw me as nothing more than a diversity hire. I had shattered glass ceilings so thick they were practically bomb-proof. And this smarmy little clerk named Todd was trying to tell me I wasn't suitable for his hotel? "Let me make this very simple for you, Todd," I said, my voice dropping an octave, losing all its weariness and gaining a sharp, steel edge. "My confirmation number is 74J-B3-Kilo. The suite was booked with and paid for by a corporate American Express Centurion card. I suggest you type that confirmation number into your little computer and find my room. Or you can get me your manager. Your choice." For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face at the mention of the Centurion card, the legendary black card. He hesitated, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He knew that card was no joke. But then his eyes scanned over my gray hoodie again, and the arrogance flooded back in, stronger than before. He'd convinced himself I was lying, that I'd somehow gotten my hands on a confirmation number that wasn't mine. He let out a short, derisive laugh. "The manager is unavailable, and our system is final. There are no rooms." He leaned back, crossing his arms, a look of smug finality on his face. "Now, if you refuse to leave the premises, I'm going to have to call security. We can't have people loitering in the lobby." "Loitering," I repeated, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. A slow, genuine smile spread across my face, and for the first time that night, it reached his eyes. The sight of it seemed to startle him more than any anger would have. "Todd," I said, my voice now soft, almost playful, "please, call them. I'd love to have a chat with your security team." I leaned against the counter, shifting my weight as if I was settling in for a long wait. I crossed my arms, my gaze never leaving his. His bravado faltered. He hadn't expected this. He'd expected me to shrink away, to be intimidated, to scurry out into the rain with my tail between my legs. He hadn't expected me to call his bluff. His hand hovered over the phone on the desk, but he didn't pick it up. He just stared at me, his Adam's apple bobbing in his throat. The mask of smug superiority was beginning to crack, revealing the nervous, insecure little man underneath. "There's no need for that," a new voice cut in. It was smoother, older, and carried an air of authority that Todd desperately lacked. A man in a tailored dark gray suit had emerged from a back office, his silver-streaked hair perfectly coiffed. He had the practiced, slightly weary look of a career hospitality manager. His name tag read, Mr. Harrison. He gave me a tight, professional smile that was only marginally more convincing than Todd's. "I am the night manager, Daniel Harrison. Is there a problem here?" Todd visibly relaxed, puffing out his chest now that he had backup. "Mr. Harrison, sir, this woman is claiming to have a reservation, but we are completely booked. I've explained the situation, but she's refusing to leave." He delivered the lines with the air of a tattletale, casting me as the unreasonable troublemaker. Mr. Harrison turned his full attention to me. His eyes did the same quick scan that Todd's had, but his assessment was more discreet, more polished. The conclusion, however, was clearly the same. "Ma'am," he began, his voice oozing with a placating tone I found even more insulting than Todd's outright hostility. "I do apologize for any inconvenience. As my clerk mentioned, we are at full capacity due to the conference. I'm sure it's a simple system error with the booking agent. If you'll give me your name, I can ensure you receive a full refund and a voucher for a complimentary stay on your next visit." I looked from his impassive face to Todd's smug one. A voucher? He wanted to placate me with a voucher, as if this were about a faulty air conditioner or slow room service. They still didn't get it. They couldn't see past the hoodie and the exhaustion. They saw a problem to be managed, a piece of grit in their well-oiled machine that needed to be swept away. I let out a soft sigh, not of defeat, but of decision. I had given them their chance to do the right thing, to simply honor a reservation. Now, I was going to have to do this the hard way. I pulled out my phone again. This time, I didn't bother with the confirmation email. I tapped a single name in my contacts list. It rang once before a crisp, efficient voice answered. "Chloe, good morning. Sorry to wake you." Mr. Harrison's eyebrow twitched. He exchanged a look with Todd. "No, everything's fine," I continued, my eyes locked on the manager. "I just have a few questions for you. What do you know about the Sovereign Hotel Group?" I listened for a moment, a small smile playing on my lips. "Yes, that's the one. And who is their majority shareholder?" "I thought so. Put a pin in that. Now I need you to do something for me. I need you to find out, right now, what the availability is on the top floor of this specific hotel, the penthouse level." Mr. Harrison took a step forward. "Ma'am, I can assure you there is no need for—" I held up a single finger, silencing him without looking away from a point on the far wall. "Chloe, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Yes, the Monarch Suite is listed as occupied. That's funny. It's supposed to be occupied by me." I paused. "But the Presidential Suite is available? And the 8 other suites on that floor? Are you telling me the entire penthouse floor, save from my own missing reservation, is currently empty?" The color began to drain from Mr. Harrison's face. Todd was just looking back and forth between us, utterly confused. "Excellent," I said into the phone. "Here's what I need you to do. Book the Presidential Suite. The rate doesn't matter. Book it for 1 month. Use the Centurion account on file." Mr. Harrison choked out a sound, something between a gasp and a laugh. "Ma'am, the Presidential Suite is $25,000 a night. There's a verification process." "My assistant is handling the verification," I cut him off coolly. "Chloe, once that's confirmed, I want you to book the other 8 suites on the penthouse floor, all of them, for the same duration, 1 month." I saw Todd's jaw drop. He was doing the math in his head, and it was clearly breaking his brain. "Ma'am, this is ridiculous," Mr. Harrison sputtered, his professional calm completely shattered. "You can't just—" Ping! A soft electronic chime echoed from the computer terminal in front of Todd. He looked down at his screen, his eyes going wide. "Chloe, is that you?" I asked, my voice calm. "Confirmation for the Presidential Suite under S. Jones?" Todd looked up from his screen, his face pale as a sheet. He nodded dumbly, unable to speak. "Good," I said, a predatory calm settling over me. "Now, do the rest." Ping, ping, ping. The sound started coming faster, a steady, relentless rhythm. Ping, ping.
Todd stared at his monitor as if it were possessed, a cascade of notifications flooding his system. Each one represented a suite on the top floor, fully paid for, non-refundable, for 30 days. Each one bore the same name, S. Jones. Mr. Harrison was speechless, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. He stared at me, then at the screen, then back at me. The reality of the situation was crashing down on him in a multi-million-dollar wave. He was looking at me, really looking at me. The hoodie, the backpack, the tired lines on my face, it all suddenly seemed irrelevant in the face of the undeniable digital proof of my power lighting up his employee's computer screen. The quiet lobby was now filled with the sound of his world being turned upside down, one notification at a time. Ping, ping, ping. The final confirmations chimed in, each one a nail in the coffin of Mr. Harrison's smug authority. Silence descended upon the lobby, thick and heavy. The only sound was the gentle gurgling of the fountain, which now seemed to be mocking the two men behind the desk. Todd looked like he'd seen a ghost. Mr. Harrison, to his credit, was trying to reassemble his composure, but his face was a pallid, sweaty mask of disbelief. "All right, Chloe, that's perfect, thank you," I said into the phone, my voice as even as if I'd just ordered a pizza. "Send me the master key confirmation codes. And one more thing, get me Robert Thorne on the line. Yes, the Robert Thorne. Tell him Serafina Jones is calling about his sovereign investment, and that is urgent." I hung up before Chloe could reply, knowing she would execute the order flawlessly. I slid my phone back into my pocket and leveled a cool gaze at the manager. "Daniel," I said, dropping the Mr. Harrison and enjoying the way he flinched at the familiarity. "It seems you do have a few rooms available after all. An entire floor, in fact. My floor. I'll need a master key card that accesses all 9 suites."
He swallowed hard, his eyes darting around the empty lobby as if searching for an escape route. I don't understand. Who are you?" "I'm the woman who just booked your entire penthouse floor for a month," I stated simply. "I'm the woman your employee, Todd, tried to send to a more suitable budget inn down the street. And I'm the woman whose prepaid Monarch Suite reservation you somehow lost." I let the words hang in the air, each one a separate indictment. "But you can call me your new VIP guest, the one paying for roughly, what would you say, Daniel, 60% of your hotel's revenue for the next 30 days. Todd made a small squeaking noise. He was starting to look physically ill. Daniel Harrison, however, was a manager for a reason. His survival instincts were kicking in. The gears were turning behind his eyes as he rapidly recalibrated his entire understanding of the situation. The groveling was about to begin. Miss Jones," he stammered, his voice cracking. "Please accept my most sincere apologies. There has been a terrible misunderstanding, a grievous error on our part." He shot a venomous glare at Todd, who shrank back as if he'd been physically struck. "This is inexcusable. An employee of the Sovereign should never. We pride ourselves on our service." He trailed off, his apology dissolving into a series of panicked platitudes. "Save it, Daniel," I said, waving a dismissive hand. "Your pride, your service, they mean very little to me right now. What I want is my key, and I want it 5 minutes ago." He practically tripped over himself rushing to the keycard machine. "Of course, Miss Jones. Right away, Miss Jones." He fumbled with the plastic cards, his hand shaking so much he dropped one on the floor. Todd, frozen in place, just watched it fall. Daniel scrambled to pick it up, his face flushed with a humiliating shade of crimson. As he programmed the master key, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. The caller ID read Robert Thorne. Perfect timing. I answered, putting it on speaker so my 2 new friends could listen in. "Serafina? It's 3 in the morning here. Is everything all right?" The voice was deep,
gravelly, and carried the unmistakable weight of old money and immense power. It was the voice of the man who owned the majority stake in the entire Sovereign Hotel Group. "Robert, I'm fine. I apologize for the late call," I said, my eyes fixed on Daniel as he worked. "I'm just having a bit of an issue checking into your flagship hotel." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "An issue? At the Sovereign? That's unusual. They're usually my most reliable property. What's the problem?" "Well, it seems my prepaid reservation for the Monarch Suite mysteriously vanished, and the night manager, a Mr. Daniel Harrison, informed me that the hotel was completely 100% booked. His clerk, Todd, suggested I find lodging elsewhere, something more suitable." The silence that followed was so profound, I could almost hear the ice forming in it. Daniel had stopped programming the key. His face had gone from pale to translucent. He looked like he was about to faint. When Robert Thorne finally spoke, his voice was dangerously low. He said, "What?" "Don't worry, Robert. I've sorted it out for now," I continued breezily. "I just bought out the entire penthouse floor for the next month to ensure I'd have a place to sleep. A bit extreme, I know, but I was getting desperate. It did get me thinking about my investment portfolio, though. You know, I've been looking to diversify into luxury hospitality. But if this is the standard of service at your flagship property, particularly how they treat a fellow investor, well, it gives me pause." I was bluffing, of course. I had no current investments in his hotel group. But he didn't know that. What he did know was my reputation in the tech world. He knew I had the capital and the influence to become a very powerful and very problematic shareholder if I chose to. "Serafina?" Robert's voice was tight with controlled fury. "Put the manager on the phone. Put Daniel Harrison on the phone right now." I smiled sweetly at Daniel, holding the phone out to him. "He'd like a word with you." Daniel took the phone as if it were a venomous snake. His hand was trembling so badly I thought he might drop it. He lifted it to his ear, his eyes wide with terror. "Yes, Mr. Thorne, sir," he whispered, his voice barely audible. I couldn't hear Robert's side of the conversation anymore, but I didn't need to. I could see it all on Daniel Harrison's face. The blood drained from his cheeks. His posture collapsed. His eyes darted back and forth as if looking for a hole to crawl into. He muttered a series of "yes, sirs," and "I understand, sirs," and "it won't happen again, sirs." Todd, meanwhile, seemed to have finally grasped the sheer, terrifying magnitude of his mistake. He wasn't just going to be fired. His career in hospitality in this city was over. He had messed with the wrong person, and now the god of his industry was on the phone raining down fire from on high. The call ended. Daniel stood motionless for a moment, the phone still pressed to his ear, before slowly lowering it and placing it on the counter with a shaking hand. He looked at me, his expression stripped of all pretense. It was pure, unadulterated fear. "Miss Jones," he began, his voice a hoarse croak. I can't apologize enough. Your stay for the entire month, everything. It will of course be complimentary, on the house. Please allow us to—" "Stop," I said, holding up my hand. "Don't you dare. You are not comping my rooms. I am paying for them. Every single cent. I want the 7-figure charge to go through on my account. I want it on the record that I own this floor for the next 30 days. This isn't about getting a freebie, Daniel. This is about making a point." He nodded, defeated. He finally handed me the newly programmed master key. It was a simple white plastic card, but it felt heavy in my hand, heavy with the weight of victory. "Now," I said, turning my attention fully to Todd for the first time since the manager had appeared. "You and I need to have a little talk. I have a business proposition for you." Todd stared at me, his mouth agape. He was probably expecting me to demand he be fired on the spot. A business proposition was the last thing on earth he could have imagined. "You see, Todd," I continued, leaning in slightly, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur. "I own a floor now, and a floor needs staff. It needs a dedicated concierge, a personal assistant, someone to attend to my every whim, 24/7 for the next 30 days. And I think you would be just suitable."
Todd's face went through a rapid series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, a flicker of hope, and finally, dawning horror as he understood the nature of my proposition. This wasn't a reprieve. It was a sentence. A 30-day sentence to be my personal dog's body, a constant walking reminder of the single biggest mistake of his professional life. His fate was no longer in Daniel Harrison's hands, or even Robert Thorne's. It was in mine. You want me to be your butler?" he stammered, the words sounding foreign and absurd on his tongue. "I prefer the term executive liaison for the penthouse floor," I replied, my voice dripping with mock seriousness. "But butler works in a pinch. You'll report directly to me, and only to me. You'll be on call day and night. Your primary responsibility will be to ensure my stay is perfect. You'll coordinate my meals, arrange transportation, handle my dry cleaning, and bring me coffee at precisely 6 a.m. every morning. 2 sugars, 1 cream. Don't forget it." I gave him a sharp, brilliant smile. "It's a very important position, far more suitable for your talents than standing behind this desk judging people." Daniel Harrison, seeing a potential, albeit bizarre, path out of his own immediate execution, jumped on it. "An excellent idea, Miss Jones. A brilliant solution. Todd would be honored, wouldn't you, Todd?" He nudged the younger man hard in the ribs. Todd just stared at me, his eyes wide. The fight had completely gone out of him. He was a puppet whose strings had been cut. "Yes, ma'am," he whispered, the word barely audible. "Excellent. Then it's settled," I declared. "Your first task is to have my luggage, which is still sitting by the door, sent up to the presidential suite. Then I want you to arrange for a late-night meal, something from that Michelin-starred place a few blocks over. They're closed, you say? Well, as my new executive liaison, I'm sure you'll figure something out. I expect it in my suite in 1 hour." I turned my back on them without another word, master key in hand, and headed for the elevators. The doorman, who had witnessed the entire drama from a discreet distance, rushed to press the button for me, his eyes twinkling with a mixture of awe and amusement. He gave me a subtle, respectful nod as the polished brass doors slid shut. The next 30 days were a masterclass in petty, luxurious revenge. Todd became my shadow. He was there at dawn with my coffee, his own face pale and sleep-deprived. He was there to draw my bath, filled with ridiculously expensive imported bath salts I had him track down at 4 a.m. He was there to hand-press my newspapers and meticulously organize the dozens of shopping bags from impromptu sprees I sent him on. I made him my food taster, my package courier, and my personal IT support when the Wi-Fi was a millisecond too slow. Every task was delivered with a polite, saccharine sweetness that made it impossible for him to complain. And through it all, I watched him. At first, he was sullen, resentful, performing his duties with a barely concealed rage. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to shift. The constant, humbling servitude began to chip away at his arrogance. He saw me not just the powerful woman who had ruined his life, but as a person. He saw me work 14-hour days from my suite, taking conference calls with Tokyo and London, building the empire that gave me the power to command him. He saw me laugh on the phone with my family. He once accidentally walked in while I was mentoring a young black woman from an inner-city startup, giving her the kind of advice and encouragement no one had ever given me. He started anticipating my needs. The coffee would be waiting for me before I even called.
He'd have a list of potential dinner options ready for me by noon. The smug clerk was slowly being replaced by a hyper-efficient, if perpetually terrified, assistant. Daniel Harrison, for his part, treated me like a visiting queen every time I swept through the lobby. My name became a legend among the hotel staff, the quiet woman in the hoodie who bought the top floor. On the final day of my stay, I called Todd to the main sitting area of the presidential suite. He entered cautiously, as he always did, his hands clasped behind his back. "You summoned me, Miss Jones?" "I did, Todd. Sit down," I said, gesturing to the plush armchair opposite me. He hesitated, having never been invited to sit in my presence before, but eventually complied, perching awkwardly on the edge of the cushion. "My stay here is over," I began. "Tomorrow I check out. Your assignment is complete." A wave of palpable relief washed over his face. He nodded, not daring to speak. "For 30 days you've been at my beck and call. You've done everything I've asked, no matter how ridiculous. So I have one final question for you, Todd. Why did you refuse me a room that night?" He looked down at his hands, his face flushing with shame. He was silent for a long moment. "I don't have an excuse," he finally said, his voice quiet and raw. "I saw what I wanted to see. I made an assumption. It was lazy, and it was ugly. I judged you, and I was wrong. I was profoundly and unforgivably wrong." The apology was simple, direct, and for the first time since I'd met him, it felt genuine. It wasn't born of fear of his boss or his boss's boss. It was born of a month spent in the trenches of his own prejudice. I leaned back, studying him. "Do you know why I did this, Todd? Why I didn't just have you fired you?" He shook his head. "Because firing you would have been easy. You would have gone on to another job, convinced you were the victim of some crazy rich woman. You wouldn't have learned a thing. I did this to teach you. I wanted you to see that the tailored suit, the expensive watch, the color of a person's skin, it's all just packaging. It tells you nothing about the person inside. It tells you nothing about their power, their worth, their story." I stood up and walked over to my desk, picking up a folder. "Your tenure as my liaison is over, but I have a new business proposition for you." I handed him the folder. "I'm launching a new foundation. It's dedicated to providing scholarships and mentorship for underprivileged youth who want to get into the tech and hospitality industries. People who look like me, who start with nothing but a brain and a dream, who will one day walk into hotels like this and not be judged by the clothes on their back. It needs a director of operations, someone meticulous, efficient, and who has learned a very, very hard lesson about the importance of giving people a chance." He stared at the folder, then up at me, his eyes shining with unshed tears. He was speechless. "The job is yours if you want it," I said. "It pays less than what you make here. The hours are longer, and it will be the hardest work you've ever done. But it might just be the most suitable job for you after all." I left him there, sitting in the silence of the opulent suite, the folder resting in his lap like a lifeline. As I packed my last bag, I felt a sense of closure that was far more satisfying than simple revenge. I hadn't just bought a floor, I had bought an opportunity. An opportunity to change a mind, and in doing so, perhaps change a few futures as well.